When the world turned its back on Melody, one man decided to stand in the gap, and that man was Shari. In a time when her name was being dragged, her peace tested, and her strength questioned, Marcus did something rare. He chose loyalty over popularity. He didn't wait for applause or validation. He didn't do interviews to clear anything up. He simply stood beside Melody when others were too afraid to. In a world where people switch sides the moment pressure rises, Marcus stayed still. His presence alone said more than any defense ever could. Melody had been through storm after storm. From public betrayal to endless online attacks, it seemed like every time she took a step forward, something or someone tried to pull her back. Her strength had been tested in ways most people couldn't imagine. Behind the smiles and achievements, there were moments of exhaustion and quiet pain. But during those moments, Marcus became her calm. While people were gossiping, he was praying. While people were tearing her down, he was building her up. That's what makes this story powerful, because this isn't just about friendship or family. It's about real loyalty that speaks without words. For months, Melody faced an emotional storm that would have broken many. Every post she made became a debate. Every silence turned into speculation. The internet was cruel. It's easy for strangers to form opinions when they're not the ones living through it. And in that noise, many of the people who once claimed to support her disappeared. Some stayed quiet. Others joined the crowd. But Marcus didn't. He saw what was happening, and instead of adding to the noise, he became her peace. When Marcus spoke publicly for the first time about Melody, it wasn't through a dramatic video or long speech. It was through a few simple words that carried deep meaning. He wrote, "Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who choose peace over proving a point." That line shook people. Because everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. Melody had been silent while the world threw shade her way. She didn't clap back, she didn't argue, she simply focused on protecting her peace. And that's what made Marcus' words so powerful. He reminded people that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, silence is strength. From that point forward, people started to notice that Marcus was always there. He didn't try to make it about himself, but his support was undeniable. Whether it was him showing up quietly at her events, speaking up when people twisted her story, or simply sending words of encouragement, Marcus made sure Melody knew she wasn't fighting alone. That kind of loyalty is rare in this world, especially when fame, jealousy, and gossip are involved. Behind the scenes, Marcus became a pillar of calm for Melody. He helped her remember who she was when the world tried to define her. He reminded her that she didn't owe explanations to anyone, that she didn't have to defend her truth to people committed to misunderstanding her. His presence helped Melody rise stronger, calmer, and more centered. And that's when people began to see the shift. The turning point came when Melody made her first major public appearance after months of silence. The air was tense. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what she would say or how she would act. But when she walked on stage, there was a new kind of confidence in her eyes, not the forced kind that hides pain, but the kind that comes from peace. Sitting quietly in the audience was Marcus, watching her with pride. He didn't need to speak. His support spoke for itself. When Melody started her speech that day, she didn't address rumors or point fingers. Instead, she talked about resilience, growth, and staying true to yourself even when the world misunderstands you. And then she said something that silenced the room. Sometimes God sends people into your life not to save you, but to remind you who you are. Everyone knew exactly who she meant. It was a subtle acknowledgement, but it carried so much weight. That moment showed just how much Marcus' presence had helped her rebuild not just her confidence, but her peace. After that event, the internet exploded. People started to take notice of their bond. Some praised it. Others questioned it. Social media became a battlefield of opinions once again. Were they just close friends? Was there something deeper? Everyone wanted to know. But while the gossip spread, Marcus and Melody stayed silent. They didn't explain. They didn't entertain rumors. Instead, they continued working, showing the world that not every connection needs validation. Marcus started collaborating with Melody on projects that mattered, mentoring youth, promoting emotional healing, and supporting community outreach. Their message was about strength, accountability, and moving forward with grace. They weren't chasing attention. They were spreading purpose. But as their bond grew publicly, the backlash started again. Some people couldn't handle seeing genuine loyalty in a world built on fake alliances. Whispers started circulating, claims that Marcus was using Melody for attention, that he wanted to be in the spotlight. But Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't respond with anger. He stayed calm, grounded, and consistent. In one interview, he said, "When someone's been through enough pain, they don't need more opinions. They need someone to stand beside them and say, 'I've got you.'" That single statement went viral. People began calling him a real one, a man who wasn't afraid to stand by a woman with no hidden agenda. For Melody, that meant everything. After years of people turning their backs or switching sides, she finally had someone who didn't walk away when things got uncomfortable. And it showed. Her energy changed. Her glow came back. She began smiling again, not the polite smile for cameras, but the kind that comes from inner peace. She started focusing on her work again, creating new projects, speaking to fans, and spreading messages of healing. The woman who once looked drained now radiated purpose, but of course, not everyone was happy about that. The stronger Melody became, the louder her critics grew. They wanted to know how she managed to stay so composed, who was behind her strength. And when they saw Marcus by her side, the rumors started again. Every photo, every post, every event became evidence for gossip pages. One photo of Marcus carrying her bag after an event went viral. To some, it was just kindness. To others, it became a headline, "Are Marcus and Melody more than friends?" That's how it always goes. When people see loyalty that doesn't fit the norm, they label it something else. But Marcus handled the gossip like he always did, with calm dignity. During one interview, a journalist asked him directly about his relationship with Melody. Marcus smiled and said, "When you truly care about someone's growth, the world will always assume you want something in return. But I don't. I just want to see her win." That one sentence silenced so many people. Because in that moment, he spoke truthfully, something rare in this industry. Still, the noise didn't stop completely. There were still people who doubted, who twisted their story to fit their own narratives. But the beautiful part is that neither Marcus nor Melody ever responded with bitterness. They let their actions speak. They kept working. They kept showing up. And that consistency began to shift public opinion. People started seeing their connection for what it really was, genuine care, loyalty, and shared strength. Behind the scenes, though, things weren't easy. The online criticism was harsh, and at times, it did take a toll. Friends close to Melody revealed that there were nights when she questioned whether it was worth it. Whether being so open about her support system made her too vulnerable. But Marcus always reminded her, "Let them talk. The truth always outlasts the noise." Those words became their quiet motto, a reminder that you don't have to prove what's real. Time does that for you. When Melody posted a video of herself during a rehearsal with the caption, "Growth is painful, but I'm grateful for those who helped me carry it," the internet instantly knew who she was referring to. It wasn't about tagging names or giving credit, it was about gratitude. The kind that comes from knowing someone stood beside you when others walked away. That moment became a symbol of strength and partnership built on something deeper than appearances. Instead of retreating from the negativity, Marcus and Melody turned it into purpose. They began hosting events focused on healing, empowerment, and emotional growth. They talked about self-worth, forgiveness, and the power of moving on without bitterness. Their message wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about showing that grace is stronger than gossip. At one of their community events, Marcus said something that once again resonated deeply. He said, "People will question your intentions when they don't understand your heart. But if your purpose is pure, you don't have to prove it." You just keep showing up. That line became a viral quote, shared across social media by people who knew what it felt like to be misunderstood. And just like that, the story began to shift from rumor to respect. Fans started rallying behind Melody again. They saw her light return. They saw her peace restored. And they saw how Marcus' presence made that possible. People began to understand that sometimes support doesn't come with grand gestures or public declarations. Sometimes, it comes quietly, through consistency and care. Most people expected the pressure to break them, but instead, it built them. When the internet got cruel, they got stronger. When the gossip grew louder, they became more grounded. And what came out of that was something powerful, a movement rooted in truth, faith, and grace. Melody began talking openly about her healing journey. She didn't dwell on the past or feed into rumors. She spoke about boundaries, peace, and the importance of protecting your spirit. She reminded her followers that healing isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about learning to rise, even when you're still hurting. Marcus, on the other hand, continued being her quiet strength. He never overshadowed her. He didn't make her success about himself. He simply stood beside her, like a solid foundation that didn't need to be seen to be real. People began noticing that he wasn't seeking fame or validation. He was simply living his truth, and that truth was loyalty. One of the most emotional moments came during a charity event when Melody decided to perform again after months of staying away from the stage. Cameras caught her looking nervous backstage. Before she went on, Marcus leaned in and said softly, "You've already survived worse than this. Go remind them who you are." Moments later, Melody walked out and gave one of the most powerful performances of her career. That night, fans flooded social media with messages of love and admiration. It was more than a performance, it was a moment of healing. That performance became symbolic of her entire journey, rising after being broken, finding light after darkness, and realizing that real strength is often quiet. And Marcus was there, just like he'd been since the beginning, steady, calm, and proud. Their story isn't about romance or drama. It's about loyalty that the world rarely sees anymore. It's about how one person's faith can help another remember their purpose. Through every rumor, every whisper, every headline, Marcus never changed. And that's what made all the difference. Over time, even critics began to soften. They saw that this wasn't about publicity or image. It was about humanity. About kindness. About standing with someone when it's easier to stand back. In interviews, Melody often said that healing isn't beautiful, it's hard, uncomfortable, and messy. But it's worth it when you have people around you who bring peace instead of chaos. And Marcus became the living proof of that. In one of his final statements on the subject, Marcus said, "You can't rise above until you stop trying to prove yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you." That quote became one of the most shared lines online. Not because it was poetic, but because it was true. It spoke to everyone who's ever been judged unfairly, everyone who's ever been talked about, and everyone who's ever had to stay strong in silence. Through everything, the drama, the speculation, the noise, Marcus and Melody stayed true to who they are. They chose grace over gossip, faith over fear, and loyalty over likes. Their story proves something powerful, that sometimes, when life tests you the hardest, God places people in your life to remind you that you're not alone. And Marcus did just that. He didn't save Melody. He helped her remember she didn't need saving. He reminded her that she already had the strength to stand. That kind of loyalty doesn't fade. It leaves a mark, not just on the person it supports, but on everyone who witnesses it. In a world where betrayal often makes headlines, this story stands as a quiet reminder that true support still exists. That genuine care doesn't need attention. That sometimes, the greatest strength isn't in speaking loudly, but in standing firmly beside someone when everyone else walks away. And as Melody continues to rise, one thing is certain, Marcus' role in her journey won't be forgotten. Because when the world doubted her, he believed. When the noise grew loud, he stayed silent. And when she was ready to rise again, he was right there, not in front of her, not behind her, but beside her. That's what real loyalty looks like. That's what quiet strength feels like. And that's why this story matters, because in a world full of noise, they showed us the power of peace.